It was just another Tuesday morning, or so I thought. The office was quiet, save for the hum of computers and the occasional clack of keyboards. I'd come in early again, as usual. The coffee machine was still heating up, and sunlight had barely spilled through the blinds. That kind of quiet always made me feel productive. Peaceful, even. Until the ping. I glanced at my screen, expecting a reminder or maybe a Slack notification about the client presentation I'd been preparing for. Instead, I saw something I wasn't meant to see. She thinks she's so perfect just because she double-checks everything. It's called anxiety, not excellence. The message was from Jasmine. It had landed squarely in our team-wide Slack channel. Everyone could see it, me, Ryan, Zoe, even Marcus from IT, who was only added temporarily to help fix our software bug last week. I froze. My first instinct was confusion. Then embarrassment. Then a creeping, hot flush of realization that she was me. There was a beat of silence. No replies. No reactions. Nothing. Just a ticking clock and my thudding pulse. 10 seconds later, Jasmine deleted the message. Too slow. The damage was done, and we both knew it. I glanced around the office. Jasmine was across the room, staring hard at her monitor, pretending nothing had happened. Her posture screamed regret. Ryan wasn't even trying to hide his smirk. I clicked open our group chat history. That message wasn't a one-off. It had tone. Familiarity. Like this was just one of many things they'd said about me. I felt a cold knot twist in my stomach. And then, another ping. A private message. From Ryan. Hey, just ignore Jasmine. She didn't mean it like that. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. What could I say? No worries, I'm totally fine being mocked behind my back by people I share deadlines with. I closed Slack. Took a deep breath. Told myself to focus. But 5 minutes later, I received an accidental second invite to a chat I wasn't meant to see. Group name, Work Goss. Participants, Jasmine, Ryan, Zoe, Anne, not me. My heart sank. They had a whole group dedicated to talking behind people's backs. Mine, especially. I hadn't even clicked the chat yet, but I already knew. Somehow, I knew. And when I finally opened it, let's just say, I stopped doubting myself. There were jokes about my obsession with formatting, rants about how Layla acts like she's the boss, and memes, mocking things I'd said during meetings. One of them had taken a screenshot of my color-coded calendar and captioned it. When your whole personality is a Google sheet. I read until my hands were shaking. Then I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't storm into the manager's office. I didn't call them out or write a passive-aggressive post on LinkedIn about toxic work culture. Instead, I sat back. Took another sip of my now cold coffee. And decided one thing, clearly and firmly. I was going to make sure the next message they shared about me, the one they'd have to read in the official announcement, would be this. Layla has been promoted to team leader. After reading every last message in the Work Goss chat, I closed my laptop with slow, deliberate care, like I was sealing something in. A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to quit, march into HR, or send the chat history straight to our manager, Carla. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I did the one thing none of them expected. I stayed. I showed up the next morning, early as always, coffee in hand, my to-do list already drafted before half the office even turned on their monitors. Jasmine glanced at me, eyes flickering with worry, but I gave her nothing, just a polite nod and a morning. Ryan cracked a joke about deadlines being Layla's love language, but I only smiled. The truth was, I didn't feel okay. I felt betrayed. These were people I had supported through late-night projects, covered for when they were behind, even brought snacks for during stressful weeks. And somehow, I had become the punchline of their private little comedy club. But I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. Instead, I started documenting everything. I made a quiet list of every major task I had contributed to, every process I had optimized, every client I had helped retain with my systems. I backed up emails, collected receipts, compiled internal feedback from past performance reviews, even quotes from coworkers outside the team who had praised my organization and consistency. But that was just the beginning. I started watching them. Not like a spy, just observant. Attentive. I noticed that Jasmine routinely missed deadlines but was always quick to deflect blame. I saw how Ryan dominated meetings with half-formed ideas but left the follow-up work to others. Zoe, sweet but disorganized, leaned heavily on templates I had built, without ever acknowledging it. Meanwhile, I kept doing my work. And I did it better than ever. Carla noticed. One afternoon, as we were wrapping up a quarterly report, she paused and said, "Layla, I don't know how you manage to stay so on top of things. You're the one holding this team together." I blinked. Just doing my part. She gave me a thoughtful look. "You ever think about taking on a leadership role?" My heart skipped. But I didn't leap. Not yet. I knew Carla. She was testing the waters, seeing how I'd react. I just nodded and said, I'd be open to it. If it helps the team, of course. Inside, I was already planning. The promotion wasn't mine yet, but the signs were there. Carla had been accepting interviews for a regional manager position, and rumor had it she was likely to leave. Everyone was speculating about who might replace her. Jasmine was being extra helpful all of a sudden, and Ryan had begun scheduling team huddles, where he mostly talked about himself. But they were forgetting something crucial: leadership wasn't about noise. It was about impact. And mine spoke for itself. So, while they competed for attention, I refined our project timelines, created backup training documentation, and personally fixed a recurring data sync issue that had been plaguing the team for months. Every move was quiet, deliberate, and very visible to the one person who mattered, Carla. The next Monday, she called me into her office. She didn't waste time. "I'm officially accepting the new position," she said, smiling. "And I need someone I can trust to take over this team. Someone who leads by example, not just words." I waited. "Layla, would you be interested in stepping in as interim team lead?" This time, I didn't hesitate. I'd be honored. I didn't expect applause. But I also didn't expect that silence. The announcement came during our Monday morning team meeting, a 10 a.m. ritual where people usually shuffled in with mugs in hand, half awake and barely functioning. This time, Carla opened with a smile, casually dropping the bomb as if it were an item on the to-do list. "As you all may have heard, I've accepted a regional role with HQ starting next quarter. Which means we'll need new leadership here. After careful consideration, I've selected someone who's shown incredible dedication, organization, and reliability." I saw Ryan straighten in his seat. Jasmine smiled, already forming what I could only imagine was a rehearsed humble brag. "And that person is Layla." The room went still. Zoe blinked. Jasmine's lips parted slightly, her jaw stiffening. Ryan sat back slowly like the air had been knocked out of him. I didn't gloat. I just nodded, calm, professional. "Thank you, Carla," I said. "I'm honored to step up and support the team." And just like that, it was official. I was their leader now. That first week was interesting. No one congratulated me directly, not at first. Zoe gave me a quick congrats by the printer 2 days later, voice quiet, eyes down. "Jasmine?" She barely spoke to me. Ryan acted like nothing had changed, except now he made passive jokes during meetings about micromanaging and robots with spreadsheets. But I didn't rise to it. I led with purpose. Clearly. Firmly. And fairly. In our first team meeting under my lead, I addressed the elephant in the room, but not directly. I want to be clear about one thing, I began, scanning the room. This role doesn't mean I'm above anyone. It means I'm here to help us function better. I know not everyone works the same way I do. That's fine. What matters is respect and accountability. Their eyes shifted, subtle. They knew. I didn't mention the work goss group chat. I didn't need to. The weight of it hung between us like invisible static. But what I did do was make it impossible for that behavior to thrive again. I implemented new norms. Clear agendas for every meeting. Weekly accountability check-ins. Anonymous suggestion boxes, digital, of course. And a hard boundary, side chats during work hours were to be strictly for project collaboration. That last rule was met with some resistance. Ryan chuckled when I brought it up. So we're not allowed to joke around now? I smiled. Jokes are welcome. Gossip isn't. Let's keep the jokes in the room where everyone can laugh. His smile faded. By Friday, things began to shift. Zoe started asking more thoughtful questions during meetings. Jasmine turned in her first task early, for the first time in months. Ryan submitted a budget forecast that, while sloppy, showed effort. I saw it for what it was, testing the waters. Seeing if I would play favorites, get petty, or flex my new title. But I didn't. I praised good work when I saw it. Gave feedback privately. Delegated clearly. And most importantly, I gave credit generously. When Jasmine suggested a solid restructuring of our Trello board, I implemented it. When Ryan caught a spreadsheet error, I thanked him in front of the team. It wasn't about being nice, it was about leading. And slowly, grudgingly, something shifted in the air. They weren't my friends. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But they were starting to realize something important. I hadn't been promoted out of favoritism or pity. I had earned this. With every late night, every double check, every quiet moment they had once mocked. And now? I was using it all to lead them better than they ever expected. If the announcement had been a shock, the following weeks were a slow burn. Being promoted over people who used to mock me behind my back wasn't just a test of leadership, it was a daily exercise in emotional restraint. I started every morning the same way I had before, early, focused, and ready. But now, there was weight to every word I said, every instruction I gave. My name was listed as team lead in the email signature. People outside the team suddenly copied me on everything. I was visible in a way I hadn't been before. And for the first time, so were they. Without Carla to absorb their sloppiness, Jasmine's half-baked proposals were no longer brushed off with a smile. Ryan's dramatic monologues during meetings were now gently redirected by me. Zoe, surprisingly, began thriving. She responded well to structure, and with clear expectations and support, she actually started shining. Still, the tension lingered. They didn't say it aloud, but I could feel it. They thought I would use this role for revenge. That I'd throw their mistakes in their faces, expose the chat history, make things personal. But I didn't. Because if I stooped to their level, I'd prove their group chat right. Instead, I kept stacking results. I introduced new SOPs for handling client revisions, which cut our turnaround time by 30%. I trained Zoe to take over project coordination when I had meetings. I rewrote our onboarding materials, the ones no one had updated in over a year, and HR sent me a thank you note for it. Then something unexpected happened. People outside our team noticed. A senior project manager named Eli, who barely spoke to me before, asked if I'd be open to sharing my documentation process in a cross-team workshop. I agreed, and it went so well, he recommended me for a committee on workflow optimization. Suddenly, my name wasn't just a silent worker in a shared inbox. It was on presentation slides. On calendars. On Slack invites with titles like Strategy Session and Leadership Roundtable. And back in our little team, things slowly, painfully slowly, began to shift. One afternoon, as I was reviewing timelines at my desk, Jasmine approached me. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't holding a coffee or pretending to check her phone. She looked awkward. "Hey," she said, lingering awkwardly. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I saved my work and turned to face her. "Of course." She lowered her voice. "I just wanted to say, I know I haven't exactly made things easy before. And maybe I didn't give you credit for, like, how much you actually hold things together. You're good at this." I raised an eyebrow, surprised. But I didn't gloat. I simply nodded. "Thanks, Jasmine. I appreciate you saying that." She shifted uncomfortably. "Also, if you ever need help with the intern training stuff, let me know. I have some materials from last year that might help." That moment, quiet and small, felt bigger than any meeting. Not because she'd finally acknowledged me, but because I'd earned that acknowledgement without demanding it. By the end of the month, the vibe in the office had changed. We weren't best friends, but we were a team. Jokes still happened, but no one whispered anymore when I walked by. People asked for my input. They followed timelines. Zoe even stayed late one evening to help finish a pitch deck, not because I asked, but because she wanted to contribute. Even Ryan, who had resisted the most, eventually came around. One Friday afternoon, after I reviewed his new proposal and made suggestions that improved it without putting him down, he lingered after the meeting. "You know," he said, "you could have buried me in front of everyone. I would have deserved it." I shrugged. "That's not leadership. That's ego." He gave a slow nod. "Yeah. Well, thanks. You're doing a good job, Layla. Leadership isn't about being liked. It's not even about being right all the time. It's about creating a space where people have to rise, or fall, on their own merit. Where respect is earned, not demanded. Where gossip dies not from punishment, but from irrelevance." And in that room, with those teammates who once mocked me behind a keyboard, I had earned it. All of it. 6 months later, the work goss chat was dead. No one said it. No one needed to. But we all knew. Slack had become purely professional. Conversations happened where everyone could see them, not because I policed it, but because the culture had shifted. Accountability wasn't something I enforced anymore. It was something we lived. I'd watched it happen slowly, like a room warming to the sun after a long, cold winter. Zoe was now leading small client projects on her own. Jasmine had improved her reporting habits so well that I'd nominated her to co-present at a department-wide quarterly review, and she'd nailed it. Ryan, well, he was still sarcastic, but now it came with results. His ideas were sharper, his presentations more thought out. And when the intern program launched in the spring, he actually volunteered to help mentor. Things were working. We were working. But I hadn't forgotten where we started. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I got the email. Subject: Regional Leadership Cohort, Internal Nomination. Inside, Carla's name. A short message. A link. An invitation. She'd nominated me to participate in the company's prestigious leadership development program, a fast track to upper management. Fewer than 20 people were selected across the company every year. The only requirement? You had to be vouched for by someone in senior leadership and show proof of team transformation. I reread the message 3 times. Then I smiled. Not because of the opportunity itself, though it was huge, but because I knew that everything I needed to justify that nomination was already in motion. I clicked accept. That Friday, something happened that I hadn't anticipated. Zoe brought in cupcakes. Jasmine brought coffee. Ryan showed up on time, and with a playlist. I walked into the meeting room to find a small, makeshift, "Congrats, Layla" sign hanging on the whiteboard. I blinked. "What is this?" Jasmine grinned. "We heard about the program. Carla couldn't stop bragging about you in her department update. Zoe added, she said you were the reason she could take the promotion in the first place. Ryan handed me a coffee. We figured the least we could do is celebrate. You've earned it. I paused. For once, words didn't come immediately. I looked at the three people who used to laugh about me in a group chat they thought I'd never see. And now? They were standing in front of me, not as rivals, not as obstacles, but as peers. Maybe even something close to friends. I appreciate this, I finally said. I really do. Ryan leaned back in his chair. You know, we were wrong about you. Jasmine nudged him. You were loudly wrong. I was just quietly skeptical. Zoe laughed. I shook my head, smiling. You weren't wrong. Not entirely. I was anxious. I did double-check everything. I probably was a little robotic sometimes. Ryan raised an eyebrow. So what changed? I looked around the room. At the team we had become. At the process we had rebuilt from scratch. I stopped hiding my standards. And I stopped trying to be liked. I paused. Turns out, when you do that, sometimes, people start liking you anyway. There was a beat of silence. Then Jasmine raised her coffee. To the spreadsheet queen, she said. We all laughed, but this time, I laughed with them. Months later, when I walked into my first regional leadership retreat, I was asked to give a short talk on the topic. What was your biggest challenge as a first-time team leader? I thought about the chat. The betrayal. The silence in the meeting room the day I was promoted. Then I looked at the room of eager new leaders and said, my biggest challenge wasn't leading the team. It was earning the trust of people who had decided I didn't deserve it. And proving them wrong by proving them right about one thing. I was relentless. Just not in the way they feared. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Clarity. And, sometimes, keeping your head down long enough to lift the whole room up with you. And when I finished, the applause was real. Just like everything I'd built. Just like me.